Hello, welcome to Christmas 2020, deliberately without a university logo, but with the sign of the times, this 2020 logo, and my green screen, which incidentally works exactly as badly as you would expect with green eyes. Sometimes my eyes go transparent and you can see through them, which is really creepy. This is our attempt to have something a little like our usual event. Usually we have a local event sponsored by the Fachschaft of Technology and Bionics. This time, as with the symbol of the year, not so much. As usual, so you won't know this, but as usual, I've stolen most of the images from the internet and it's impossible to give attributions to all of them. If you search for the same image again, you find it 5 or 6 times and it's very difficult to get back to the original. My Google Foo is not good enough to do that. It wasn't me though, I didn't make any of the images. This year has been pretty bad for everyone, apart from people who really hate children, particularly those who hate other people's snotty children. Pulling away from other people's snotty children is currently socially acceptable, and parents are expected to keep their children to themselves. Oh, I've gone off my screen, which is unlike usual for Germany. Normally it's hard to go shopping, for example, without wading knee-deep in other people's children, poking you and messing around with things. At the moment, everybody is way better behaved. Unfortunately, there are a lot of differences this year. Normally, I would set fire to things, make a few things explode. That would be the main interest. If you wanted to watch a video of something on fire, however, this year is a bad place to be. Have a look at some others on the internet, because I'm at home trying not to set fire to my kitchen while I'm cooking for my children. Damn it. Everything has not been going as well as usual. Sadly, not only in the world, but also at home, or maybe sadly the other way around, things are difficult. My plan to have a more university-like place of work that I mention every year in this, although obviously you're all different people, but I'm the same. It's been damaged this year by our president, who wants a German-style Fachhochschule, which is not really what I was hoping for. Outside our place, however, things are moving forward with a thing called the Graduation Institute of our state, moving forward to become a PhD awarding instance, and we as a university will be able to use them to award PhDs if that ever works, but it is moving forwards. We also had 2 rounds of discussion about research focuses in our university, and unusually we managed to come to a conclusion. Up till now we've always come to the conclusion that we should do everything and nothing, and this time we've got some titles and a decision. They may not be exactly what everybody wants, but that's how it goes. Our 2 focus areas are something about the use of biological raw materials in sustainable food systems, and something about mobility. I didn't have the whole title for that one. Both of which seem quite reasonable considering how much people like to fight each other at our institution. You would think it would be easy working at home, but it turns out not to be true at all. There are so many more distractions when you're at home than there are if you go to a place of work and sit there and you're stuck and you don't have any other things to do. It's like being a student again for me, but worse. So in commemoration of that, I've not shaved for this video to be like the blunt pencil. This is why we're doing this, or why I'm doing this. It's a problem here, particularly this year. There's nobody to show things to. Feedback in courses, feedback in everything is very weak and delayed, and everybody is an island to themselves. This is also why there's no laugh track to this video, because there's nobody to laugh at it. I'm sitting on my own. Normally I'm assisted by 2 people and a choir. This time, yeah, I'm on my own. There are 2 people maybe adding some things separately at different times from their own home. It's motivation to do it anyway, because it's better to do than doing nothing, and I've got all of these things I've stolen off the internet and nothing to do with them. And happy winter solstice to you all, whether you believe in that or whether you believe in something else. Speaking of which, there was some interpretation last time that I'm against religion, so I decided to get ordained as a minister. I don't think it'll help, but hey, it's an achievement for this year. Forcing people onto YouTube and other platforms and generating online resources that we never had before is maybe a good thing after all. Zoom did well, of course, as a company, but their shares dropped the moment a vaccine was announced, so who knows how long it will last. Now that I'm working at home, I don't need to drive down the wrong side of the road. I don't need to risk starting my mower at the wrong time of day or putting something in the wrong dustbin, which means that if I need a stranger to call me an idiot or shout at me for no reason that I can really understand, just living here in Germany is not enough this year. And so I have to go on Twitter, which is full of people who think I'm an idiot. This image, by the way, is here to introduce the reason why I get into a lot of fights on Twitter, and that's bad science. I originally started with homeopathy, which is important because it's a local theme in Germany and India with our students, being major centers of this type of belief, which would invalidate chemistry if it was true, but it's never been shown to be true. The only real advantage that we can see is that the practitioners spend a lot of time with patients, and so they have this positive effect, which is something that I've experienced recently, in that I've had 2 trips to proper doctors this year, which resulted in them doing nothing. But I still felt better because they said, hey, there's nothing wrong with you, go away. Or in actuality, they said, the thing that's wrong with you will get better on its own, or it's not worth doing anything. And I felt better knowing that I didn't have anything awful, which is pretty much the same effect that you get from homeopathy. They're going on to YouTube, actually. This is not Twitter. It's somebody telling me about viruses. I only teach one course on biotechnology, so I don't know everything about viruses. And I'm likely to find somebody on the internet that knows quite a lot more than me, but it's not this guy. He tells me, what does he say? Yeah, go and do some research. The whole thing is a hoax. Viruses aren't infectious. And I didn't like that, so I said, research says you're wrong. He wants me to do basic research, look it up in the right places. Where are those right places? It turns out that he thinks the right place is an old science book. The logic being that old science books for children had some information in there that we decided for some reason not to use anymore, which is crazy. It's crazy that anybody even believes this, and this was a real conversation. What do these people really mean by science? Doing some research, go and do some research, is what a lot of people on social media who sell woo, anti-vaccine, corona deniers, which are known as rat lickers these days, whatever they want to do that they've made up, they often say go and do some research to justify their position. They, however, think that research means going and watching videos in a dark part of YouTube. It turns out, unfortunately, that not all research is any good, and it takes effort to sort out the rubbish from the good stuff. Another thing reality deniers like to do is get their maths wrong. I seem to have got my screen slightly wrong, so I'm going to just fix that. There we go. In a famous case, a guy called Toby Young decided that he would post some maths showing that a very small percentage of people die from corona. Unfortunately, he cherry-picked his data, so it chose some data that was particularly good for his cause, but also he made a mathematical error, a simple one. He made a factor of 10 error, which changes his result from, yeah, okay, that's not very many people, to, yeah, actually it's quite a lot. So he actually showed exactly what he didn't want to show by doing the maths wrong. It was also quite funny because a lot of people called him up on it. Oops. I don't think there's much of an excuse these days. I doubt this is meaningful for many of our students, but it was a thing in the 90s. Maths teachers loved to say, you're not going to have a calculator with you, you have to remember all of these times tables. These days, it's ridiculous. Anybody has a calculator all the time. Here he is then, talking to me, and he's being right. This person called Dido Harding turned out to be a big problem. She set up the test and trace system in the UK and it didn't work very well. But I made a comment anyway because, yeah, it's Toby Young and you have to, about how useless he is. And it kind of exploded. So this is at a state relatively early on when it only had 1.4 thousand likes and 234 retweets. You sit on Twitter and write things, and occasionally the odd thing randomly becomes popular or famous, and this one made it into an online comedy paper, which is very sad considering there's a comma in my comment that shouldn't be there. And commas are really important, and if you don't think it's a problem, think again. This is what could happen to you, and if you don't understand that joke, you might have to learn some more English. Oops, yeah. But as well as making fun of homeopaths and rat lickers, etc., it's also important to try to achieve something in a year. So this is one of my achievements. It's in fact the most important one. Larry Cook here is a prominent anti-vaccine person, and eventually all the weight of complaints from all of the people caused Twitter to close his account. I think he's been pushed off several social media platforms as well. Probably very little to do with me, but I was obviously in there because I got this report saying your complaint has been dealt with. This is another one. I think this person wrote a rude message to me really, and that wasn't anything to do with other things that he'd been doing. But it turns out that Twitter is a US company with US sensibilities and is really affected by swear words, unlike other countries that we might mention. So if you can get somebody to call you something really bad, you can get them a Twitter timeout where you get time off. Which is obviously a problem for me too, because I get rude on occasion, and staring motherfuckerly is not very effective on social media. There's nobody to stare at. You can get away with it, however, if you use a term that's not so common in the US. This person seems upset about me using the word gammon, which is a UK term for fat white people mostly who are getting upset about something. It's actually quite old, but it's been brought into the vocabulary of modern England. And this person thinks that it's racist. And he reported me. What a nice man, or woman, or computer. It's hard to tell. This is what happens when you get blocked by Twitter. So you get temporarily limited, or you get blocked for longer. Depends how severe the artificial intelligence, the AI, thinks your crime was. And I suspect also how often you've been caught. So that would be why Larry finally got banned, probably from being caught several times before. This one, for me, is interesting because I got this report, ironically, showing that I had reported myself for doing something. I wish I'd thought of doing that. That would have been quite funny for comedy value, but I hadn't actually. And as I was banned, I couldn't write to Twitter to complain because I no longer had a functioning Twitter account. This is known in the US as Catch-22. You can technically complain, but when you actually need to complain, it's impossible to do so. There is an appeal process on Twitter, but it's not great. And it seems to go nowhere. They leave you hanging for a really long time, and it's usually better to just wait. Blocking people seems to have taken over as the thing to do rather than to sort of dob them in, to get them banned. And that's been a problem this year for me, because most of the funny conversations that I've had with people on Twitter ended with me getting blocked by them before I could get a copy. And sadly, that hides their old messages so that I can't do anything about it unless I had a second account, and I'm far too lazy to do that. Some people do, but I'm too lazy to do it. Yeah, this is a German one. Oh yeah, let's do one more. This is a German one. So this is a far-right guy who posted a poll on Twitter for his far-right friends to write on. It says, because some of you don't write English, it says, which type of extremism is the worst danger for people in Germany? He was clearly expecting Islamistic terror to win and maybe left-wing to come second. And they were doing pretty well in the first few hours. But then somebody kindly posted it to the rest of Twitter, and very quickly right-wing extremism, which is what he really would like to lose, came out really high. It overtook all of the others and came out as, I think it ended up 76% or something like that. I checked back recently and I'm surprised to see that I'm not blocked, and this is still up, so kudos for him for leaving it up there. If he sees this though, that might change. The other people on the internet, of course, apart from Germans, are Americans, and they forget that anybody else exists. So this is an Australian example. Australians also get annoyed when Americans forget that they exist. And they would like to see the internet and everything belonging to America, which is a very common thing, but it makes you look stupid. I'm not the only scientist on social media, however. There are a surprisingly large amount, including Neil deGrasse Tyson, but even the best gets to lose a conversation every now and then. Of course, off the internet, it doesn't always work, which is an advantage to the pandemic. Grudgingly, we have to give it that. But back to rat lickers. Corona deniers, they don't win very often, and sometimes it's very poetic, like in this example where they asked for what the guy's qualifications are and got told. The guy, of course, got blocked for showing the idiot up, but somebody caught this beforehand. In case you were wondering, this is how vaccines work. It's a biochemistry joke, but it's a really good one. In short, a piece of protein called an antigen from the infection or from the vaccine is presented by a macrophage, that's this cell here, to a dendritic cell, which is this cell here. It's dendritic because it's got branches on it, and they do look a little bit like this. The Rheinval symbol, this purple thing, is a chemical that's holding onto the antigen to present it to the dendritic cell. This is required knowledge for even thinking about how the new vaccines might work, or how they don't work. Because why complain about something if you don't have the faintest idea how it might work? Of course, you might have felt like this looking at that, which is all right. Nobody is expected to know everything, but be careful volunteering your lack of knowledge, as you might get caught. So here we are with a candle and a tree to finish off with in a Christmassy way. Not quite a Christmassy candle and not quite a Christmassy tree, but close enough. I hope you're able to get over social media better than I have, and maybe avoid it for the Christmas period, and that you have some fucks to give next year. All the best for the winter solstice. May Odin bring you the things you wanted, and all of your family be reasonably healthy next year. From us, the usual suspects. The other two can say something too, or maybe they don't. We'll see. Have a good time.